Hello, Adam. Thank you very much for the opportunity. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. So let's talk about Godzilla versus Kong. And first of all, how do you get involved with the movie? Because I mean, this is part of this like monster verse thing with legendary pictures, and this is like the fourth movie, right?
hmm
So, what do you think that they like choose you to be part of it? I know that they've been like kind of hiring like directors that come from the indie world to
hmm
give it like a certain kind of like different sensibility or something. So do
Yeah.
you think that has something to do with it?
Well, I mean, that's the thing that's really cool about the MonsterVerse is that they really do try to get people with like kind of unique visions, and they want them to bring them to the material to give you a different perspective on these characters, which we've seen a lot of different times in different movies. I guess my entrance into being hired for this thing actually goes back to 2013, interestingly enough, and I have to kind of give credit to Peter Jackson because he originally was going to do a sequel to his King Kong film
Yeah.
at Universal, and Mary Parent, who runs Legendary now, was producing that for him. And he was a fan of my movie You're Next early
Mhm.
on, and so we had a talk, and it turned out that he wanted me to direct that movie, the sequel. And at the time, it was going to be called Skull Island. And flash forward a little bit, and somehow the rights from Universal with King Kong ended up going over to Warner Brothers, and so it got taken away from Peter Jackson, and the project died, and I died with it. And so I went off and did my own thing. Meanwhile, Mary stayed with the franchise and kind of ran the whole Legendary Monsterverse. And then you flash forward to 2017, they're gearing up to do King of Monsters, and they wanted to get Godzilla versus Kong going. And I just happened to be finishing my movie that I was working on at the time, and I had a general meeting with Mary, and I just went in there and we started talking about Godzilla versus Kong. And instantly, when she brought it up, I expressed a lot of interest. I immediately had this kind of image in my head of Godzilla and King Kong fighting in this futuristic neon-soaked sort of city, um, and uh, and we just kind of hit it off. And it wasn't a very hard process. I never really had to go in and pitch very hard for it. And I think that the credit is really because I kind of already been vouched for by Peter Jackson, and I just have to imagine that kind of stuck with her. And so in a roundabout way, I kind of give him credit for getting me this job.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. So this is obviously like in production terms the biggest thing you have ever done. How difficult is just to try to keep like a artistic personal perspective when you're working with so much like special effects and like huge monster fights
Yeah.
and a lot of people, obviously there's a lot of people involved in this one.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, what was really exciting about it for the first time ever is that I was able to kind of start from a place of pure imagination. In general, the indie movies that I'd done, they were always inhibited by what we could and couldn't afford, and so even from a writing phase, you always had to
Yeah.
kind of back things in. You'd have to say, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did this?" But oh, we can't afford to do that, so we'll have to do this instead. This film, it started from a place of you got to make it the biggest, craziest thing that anyone's ever seen. Like you
Yeah.
got to come up with completely new ideas. We have to see these monsters in totally new environments, do things we've never seen them do, and that was the challenge. And that was really the joy of it, is that for the first time ever, I was kind of like unleashed on something. And the real challenges in a movie like this aren't just like the aesthetics or even getting the emotions right, because I knew I understood how to work with tone and those kind of things from all my previous movies, which are always kind of over the top genre things that somehow balance this fine line of never going too campy but always being funny, and never going too dark but like feeling a little serious and feeling grounded. So that kind of prepared me for the experience of making this movie. And but the script writing phase is very challenging in a film like this. And for whatever reason, these big monster movies are extremely hard. Like I was talking with my one of the editors that worked with us, he had done a couple. He did original Godzilla and then King of Monsters, and he said that he told me the story about how he was in a class with his students, and over at, I don't remember what film school it was, but he told them never do a Godzilla movie. They're the hardest movies to do. And he's like, for whatever reason, it's not even easy to articulate. They're just the hardest movies to do. And you can ask anybody that makes these things. They're such a nightmare in terms of like a Rubik's Cube, puzzle. But once it all starts settling into place, there's just this synergy where it just starts working and it kind of snowballs. And it was really exciting to see that, but very challenging and but rewarding ultimately.
And then you also have to direct actors, of course. And then we have like two Latinos, two Mexican actors, Demián Bichir and Eiza González. So how was working with them? And then it's interesting because they don't portray necessarily like Latino character. And they say that's good for them because they don't want to be like, stereotype or whatever. So
yeah,
it's interesting, but at the same time, there obviously was an intention of the producer to just like give something to the Latino audience, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I think that they get the kind of fun job of getting to play some of the villain characters. Like I feel like if I was an actor, that's what I would want to play too, because you get to kind of have the most fun in some ways. And Demián especially really, he was always having a blast. It was always his idea for his character and his nice suits to always be walking around with a glass of whiskey. That was like something he brought to the set right away, and I just loved it. And I always encouraged him to just keep pushing that character and having more fun with it. And the same with Eiza. Like she's just so cool. Like she's a very different character than him, but she's like she kind of adds this like great intrigue to the portion of the film that she's in. And like they were just a lot of fun to work with. And yeah.
Are you happy that theaters are like back? I mean, they were back like for a while in other cities, but right now in Southern California and everything, of course, we got the people that want to go to the theaters will also have the choice to see like an IMAX and everything, but it's going to be shown also in HBO. So weird times, right? But how do you feel about it? I mean, some people might be able to watch it in a huge screen, but will they?
Yeah,
it's available at home.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where if you're going to release a movie right now, you can't be tone deaf and not accept the fact that like some people are just not going to be comfortable going to the theaters yet. Some people are compromised. Some people, still haven't got the vaccine. I haven't got it yet, but it's one of those things where it as a filmmaker, it's a bit devastating initially where you're like, well, I made this movie to be seen in the big screen, and now it's going to be kind of split between the two. But, these are very specific circumstances that we're existing in right now. And ultimately, what I realize is that people, for people's mental health, we need these big movies to come back. I mean, they've always been a part of our lives, and it's a way for us to kind of escape our reality a little bit and have fun, and have an excuse to hang out with each other and all those kind of things. And so, at the end of the day, what's most important is that we're getting it out there. And obviously, like for me, the best way to see the film is going to be on the biggest screen possible. I mean, these are literally the two of the biggest monsters of all time in one movie.
Yeah.
You got to see it big if you want to really be fully immersed and have the ultimate experience. But if you can't do that, it's like, I have total faith in the movie playing at home as well. I mean, it's like, it's going to be enjoyable no matter what you do, and, like I'm, like the theatrical experience is, a sacred experience to me. And it's like the number one, thing that I cherish as a filmmaker and a film fan. So in no ways do I ever want to downplay that. And I don't think it's ever going to go away. Obviously, I think a lot of people get kind of down on it, like, oh, everything's going to change because of the pandemic. But as soon as we're through this, I mean, I don't know, maybe there'll be different types of movies. Maybe the window will be a little lower or shorter. We're still going to go to the theaters because it's not like we went before because of like a sense of obligation. We went because it was fun. It's not going to be not fun when we come out the side of the pandemic. And once we're not worried about, getting COVID and dying and all this stuff, it's like, we're going to need things to do. And, the theater's going to be there. And the only way the theaters are going to be there is if we start playing movies in them. And if the only way that the studio feels comfortable playing movies in the theater right now is also doing these hybrid streaming things, I hope this isn't a long-term thing, but if that's the way that they feel comfortable doing it now, then that's just what we're going to have to do for a little bit. And, and if we're going to be the first one out kind of doing it, then all right, let's do this. What better movie to get it kickstarted than, Godzilla versus Kong.
Sure. Thank you very much, Adam, for your time. Thank you for your movies. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks. You too. See you.